My name's E.A.Koetting. I'm basically a full-time professional career black magician. And when I say black magician, in that I don't put restraints on what I'm able to do. If I want to manifest something in my life, if I want to create changes within myself or my environment, I do it. I don't care about what morals other people might have. I'm not concerned about any kind of karmic repercussion, that if you apply wisdom to what you do, you're going to be just fine. In that way, though, as I'm working on developing myself and developing the world around me through ritual magic, I am working a lot with demons, and that's one of the greatest sources of information and power that I turn to. And so I want to talk to you today about demons, the demonic hierarchy, and really how this all relates to self-progression in any way. First of all, does anybody have any kind of ideas or thoughts about what demons are and why a person might even want to work with them? Anybody? No, I'll insert that later.
Because they're evil.
Because they're evil, yeah. And that is the biggest, I think, conception that people have about demons is, first of all, that they're fallen angels, that they once were in a state of glory and they fell from there because of some kind of wickedness, they're being punished by being earthbound. That's complete bogus. That most demons, when you actually look at them, you break down where they came from, most of them were worshipped as gods in the ancient Middle East. And as different empires overthrew those empires, they would change the names of their gods into demons, thereby basically annihilating their culture and imposing their own culture and their own society into that area. And so, entities like Astarte are going to progress and become Astaroth. So Astarte, a goddess of love, and then a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand years later, you've got Astaroth, this giant demon of sexual manipulation. And so kind of a similar thread, but through that progression or digression, it becomes a completely different entity. Both entities still exist. You can still get to Astarte, but the demon of Astaroth is going to be basically an egregore or a self or group created entity or consciousness. When you look at there are a whole lot of different ideas about the demonic hierarchy, and this is kind of important to understand the hierarchy, mainly because as an operating magician, an operating ritualist, a good deal of the rituals you're going to do are going to be calling upon powers that will aid you in controlling the whole ritual. And if you know the superior spirit or demon that is commanding the demon that you're trying to call, using kind of that alliance there and even just name dropping is an excellent way to get control of the whole thing. But also the hierarchy is important in understanding what kind of spirit you're working with. If you want a massive just a cataclysmic effect from your rituals, if you call on something that's going to be a higher up in the hierarchy, it's going to allow you a much more potent form of that energy versus if you're calling on some little imp. And so it's, if you want to branch into demonic magic or demonic summoning at all, having an idea of that hierarchy is definitely important. Now, most systems actually put, interestingly, not Lucifer or Satan at the top of the hierarchy, but Beelzebub, Beelzebuth, basically that entity by whatever name. Something that I think has been misunderstood is the idea that Lucifer and Satan and Beelzebub and all of these different entities are basically the same entity under a different name. That's not necessarily the case. That they're all extraordinarily separate entities, although they're intertwined into the same kind of current and a similar consciousness. And when I'm talking about entities, really we're talking about conscious power, that this is a power, a current of energy in our existence that is conscious of itself and conscious of its interactions with people, with other entities, and events and circumstances. And as you're summoning up these entities, really the highest that you're really going to want to work with in evocation, which is basically the summoning up of a spirit in visible form in front of you, would be kings. If you go, you've got what's called the 4 crown princes of hell, and by most definitions, it's going to be Belial, Lucifer, Satan, and Leviathan. That gets switched up depending on who you're talking to and what grimoire it comes from, but that's pretty standard, and I think that was actually put into print pretty heavily by Anton LaVey in the Satanic Bible, where he laid that out and said that these are the 4 crown princes of hell, and everyone's kind of followed on that. It works really well. You can call on an entity like Lucifer or Satan and evoke it, but your ability to, I think, project any kind of effect from calling on those entities is going to be pretty difficult because of the fact that they're not naturally subjugated entities. They're not entities that'll come up and say, "Yeah, what do you want?" They're adversarial entities, so they're going to come up and say, "Who the hell do you think you are? And why are you calling me here?" And if you ask them for things, often they're going to find ways to teach you a lesson along with the result that they give you. And really specifically with Lucifer, massive teacher, and he's the angel of light, really, and so he is going to enlighten you, and that's not going to be through just giving you what you ask for. That's going to be through sending your life into a series of 9 different hells, so you can figure out what's really going on your own. And so, for the purpose of evocation, you would really. It would be beneficial to somebody who's, I think, adventurous and courageous enough to work with the demonic kings. They're going to be the highest in the hierarchy. And once again, when we're talking about demons, and I'm using the term demons, we are talking about ancient gods. And the 9 demonic kings that I have here are basically some of the 9 most powerful entities that I've come across, and that most magicians agree on. This was taken from the Lesser Key of Solomon the King, otherwise known as the Goetia. So it's a grimoire. The fable is that King Solomon, in order to build the Temple of Solomon, wasn't able to do it with himself or just with physical help. And there's similar stories about the Sumerian ziggurats as well as the Egyptian pyramids, that humans weren't able to do these things, and so demons were summoned to actually build the temple. And so he was able to bind 72 of the most powerful demons into a vessel, and then summon them out of that vessel and have them do different aspects of working in the temple. Obviously, Solomon's temple is not a physical place that we're looking at going to, or that you can even visit, but it's an idea of building up your own empire, and an idea of taking the spiritual and making something concrete out of it, which really is the essence of black magic. Rather than just doing your rituals to gain enlightenment or connection with the divine or anything like that, you're taking your connection with the divine and you're pulling that into this world to create substantial change. And really, when you get into white magic versus black magic, those are the 2 really polar opposites. If you're using your rituals to create anything at all, you're using black magic. I don't care if you're healing people, if you're protecting people, if you're protecting yourself. If you're creating change in this world, it's black magic. Because from the right-hand path paradigm, the divine is in control of everything. The divine is going to take care of it. You don't need to do any acts. And in fact, that's pretty egotistic of you to think that you need to act on the divine's behalf. If it wants something done, it's going to do it. The black magician says, no, what you have created is simply not good enough. I'm going to improve upon your model. So the 9 demonic kings really represent pretty intense powers. I was doing a ritual working with these 9 demonic kings for the first time, calling them all in a series of 3 days, calling each one, summoning it up, constraining it, obtaining its powers and its information. in the process of that, I saw that it's not just 9 standalone kings, but they're actually pretty easily grouped into 3 different categories. Now, what I was seeing is that Beleth, Paimon, and Belial are masters of influence. So, Paimon influences the mind. He's able to influence and manipulate people's minds, people's thoughts. I've used Paimon in a lot of different instances to get people to completely change their minds 100% from what they had already determined they were going to do or how they were going to think or behave with a situation. Evoke Paimon, use the ritual of evocation to send him towards your target, and before you know it, all of a sudden they're giving you a phone call, or you're having a visit with them, and they're going, oh yeah, by the way, now I've changed my mind entirely from what I've believed my entire life or thought my entire life, or from how my mind was set on this situation. He can get into people's minds and completely change what their thoughts are. He can implant thoughts as seeds that grow into full behaviors and even lifestyles for people. Belial is well, first of all, he's the demon of lawlessness, of self-governance. So rather than going to any other authority and saying, what is it I'm supposed to be doing, that you rely on your own authority to do whatever you're doing, or whatever you want to do, or whatever you're trying to accomplish. He is able to influence or manipulate situations in a massive way. He can influence and manipulate specifically authority figures. If you ever have criminal charges pressed against you or that are being filed against you, you need to appear in court. The day of your trial, evoke Belial and just ask for his help. And I've walked in when I should have done at least 1 year in prison, probably a lot more. And I walked in and the judge was like, well, why are you even here? I'm seeing your docket, but this doesn't look like a big deal. Just get out of my courtroom. It's like, oh, cool, awesome, okay. And I've known a lot of other people who've had serious pending legal issues that have evoked Belial, asked for his help, and then the issues just completely go away. Evidence gets lost, or the person who's supposed to testify against you gets lost or disappears, or whatever the case may be. He'll find a way to get you out of trouble. And sometimes, as a black magician, you may find yourself on the other side of the whole legal veil. Now, Beleth is an interesting guy because he specifically manipulates emotions, and when you separate that from what Paimon does, because Paimon manipulates thoughts, the two go hand in hand quite a bit. Obviously, if you feel an emotion strongly enough, you're going to have thoughts associated. If you think about something long enough, you're going to have emotions that become associated. But Beleth does target specifically emotions, and so if you want to not necessarily implant a thought or an idea for somebody to have, but instead make them feel a certain way about you, I think his classical definition in the Lesser Key of Solomon is, and I could be wrong just from memory, but I think it is to cause love between men and women, and or to cause the magician to be loved by those he comes into contact with. With any of these entities, what's the couple sentences that they'll have in the grimoires about what they can do is basically just a snapshot. But you look at that, if he can cause love in anyone for the operator, he can cause other emotions too. He can cause the opposite emotion, he can cause a whole range of emotional variety. And so really this segment of these 3 demons is focused on manipulation and influence. Now, Balaam, Vine, and Person, they're givers of knowledge for sure, that they grant you a massive amount of knowledge. You can call on these things and sit with a notepad and pen and just receive dictation about a million different things. Or you can call on them, since I would imagine that a good deal of you are college students. You can call on somebody like Balaam, who can give you complete prescience, the ability just to know what's happening in the what's going to happen in the future, what's happening in remote locations, what happened in the past, to have basically what I would call point vision. You right now we see vision in a spectrum, but if you narrow it down to a point, that point is basically omnipresent. It's infinitely small and infinitely big at the same time, and so he can grant you that vision. So if you call on him, and especially if you're struggling in any type of intellectual pursuit, he sets into motion changes within your own really genetic structure, even, to start realigning your being to absorb the information better, more quickly, to have better information recall. There's a whole range of things that he's going to change within you as you work with him. And even just calling him, not even necessarily asking him to do this for you, is going to set that into motion quite a bit. And Vine has the power to overcome all obstacles. It's said that he is able to cause storms that will knock over stone walls. Well, that's a metaphor. The stone walls are the obstacles in your life, and obviously the storms are the power that you're going to thrust at those obstacles using something like Vine. And Person has the ability to create something from nothing. It's when you look at the different varieties of creation, and most people do assume that there's only one almighty being or force that was able to create everything, but that force is omnipresent, ergo it's within us, ergo we are able to use it for our own benefit and to create things as well. And so Person can teach you how to create something from nothing, create creation ex nihilo. And this is really the philosopher's stone that's been sought after by occultists for generations, being able to either transmute one element into another or to create something from nothing in front of you. And this is done through methods of evocation. In my book, the Book of Azazel, the spirit of Azazel, or the demon or god or whatever, lays out this ritual operation that's basically an evocation. But rather than evoking a spirit, you evoke the object that you want. And the ritual of evocation is a pretty intense one that you can kind of look up, and I should come in and talk about that at some point again. But rather than evoking, rather than evoking Paimon to get somebody to give you a car, you evoke the car itself. It forms in the material, in the smoke. It takes on a materialization until you get to the point you feel like you could open the car door and jump inside of it and drive away. Of course, this is all a spectral manifestation, meaning as soon as the ritual is over, it disappears. But through the evocation, you're pushing that into reality, and then before you know it, that exact car comes in your life. I got my motorcycle doing that exact same ritual, and turned out to be excellent. Everything that I was wanting, and it came to me basically without having to pay a dime out of my wallet for it, and really not even having to look for it very hard at all. So, Person can show you how to perfect the ability to create something from nothing through ritual means. So with those three, Balaam, Vine, and Person, what you're looking at is knowledge. They're teachers. They pass on knowledge about how to do specific things, or knowledge itself in your ability to learn, to absorb information, etc. And you've got the last set, Zagan, Baal, and Asmodee. Now, Zagan is a master of deceit, illusion, alchemy, and concealment. And so if there's ever a point where you need what you're doing to be completely concealed, which a lot of business people that I do business with, and I mean myself included, need that, where if you're working on a project that is going to just blow the doors open on whatever your field is, using somebody like Zagan to say, let's conceal this so nobody else, not only will they not find out what I'm doing, but that they'll even be obfuscated from being able to come across similar information, because once information is out in the kind of web of consciousness, other people can start plucking it out. And I've seen that with writing my books, that I'll be in the middle of a book and I'll notice that somebody else is publishing a book at that exact same time that has some of the exact same information that's completely new, because we're drawing from the same kind of field of consciousness. And so you can have Zagan really hide that and minimalize that information in everybody's sight. He can also go as far as making you invisible to an extent, meaning that you're not going to. If I'm standing here in front of you, you're looking at me, and I do any kind of ritual for invisibility, I'm not going to disappear because you're looking at me. But if I'm walking down the street, I've done something illegal or something that would cause people to come looking for me, and I perform a ritual, or if I work with Zagan to conceal me, then you're going to pass right by me and not even notice that I'm there. It's a form of what you call a glamour. When I was in high school and I was starting to experiment with all this, I would change my eye color a lot, just visualize the color changing to whatever I wanted until it felt like it was real, until I could feel it solidify, and then open my eyes, go about my day, and people were like, "Oh, your eyes are so beautifully blue." And I have hazel eyes, so it's easy to have that adjustment, but it's that kind of thing where your eyes aren't actually changing color. If I go look in the mirror, my eyes are still hazel, but other people see me, their instant reaction is that your eyes are blue. Same thing with this, your instant reaction is that either the person that you're passing on the street is of no interest at all, or they're not even there. And I've had that happen quite a few times, enough to validate for me that it's more than just a coincidence. All of these things are really easy to chalk up to coincidence until you see, especially after 15, 20 years of doing it, every single ritual you have a coincidence occur. You have to kind of start to think about what actually constitutes coincidence versus causality. Asmodee is the revealer of secrets. He can look into any situation, any person, see what they really see what their innermost secrets are, and deliver that to you. Now, at the time that this grimoire was written, oracles and witches and channelers were all used heavily to see what was going on in other parts of the world. At this point, we can go to Google. We can easily find that out. And so the application of something like the revealing of secrets might be less important for most magicians at this point, because once again, you can usually get online, and if you're savvy enough, you can find out anybody's secrets online. So, but then we've got another level of that, which is the revealer of the secrets of power, the secrets of godhood, the secrets of any kind of spiritual ascent. That Asmodee is able to deliver that, as well as to control the emotions of others. That's definitely part of what Asmodee is very good at, is to be able to control the emotions of others, specifically to cause people to lust or love after you and to come to you. Bael teaches invincibility and invisibility. So he can teach you how to create an energetic, I think, basically an energetic critical mass around yourself that makes you impervious to physical, spiritual, or any other kind of attack. That when people come to attack you, they're either stopped automatically or they themselves become hurt. And I've seen this happen myself several times, where people have tried to even physically attack me, and on their way to do so, car accidents happen, or strange things occur to get these people completely neutralized. And so Bael is able to do that. He also teaches invisibility. Once again, we have that Bael and Asmodee both teach invisibility as one of their prime subjects, and then Zagan teaches alchemy, illusion, and then concealment, which is a form of invisibility. And so you've got the that third category there of these demonic kings. Now, this is a debate that I'm right in the middle of, actually, like as of this morning on my Facebook, that I posted this video where I was doing this evocation it was supposed to be an evocation. It turned into basically a partial possession and invocation of an ancient Persian entity known as Dahaka, who is basically a manifestation of Ahriman, the essence of absolute darkness. And I'm working with him, and he's like, look, in order to really understand anything that I'm saying, in order for you to even get into what's going on here, you and I need to merge in some sort of way, that you need to take my name upon yourself and become me in order to understand me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll definitely do that, because I've got that, I guess, adventurous sense where common sense goes out the window and I just do what seems like it's going to be fun and interesting. And I've had people that go, well, just evoke the entity, just evoke it, tell it what to do, and it does it, and then let it go on its way. That's not quite good enough for me. That these things have these powers, and these are when you put the entities into motion in your life, you're really not only activating a power outside of yourself, but you're activating a power within yourself. That the external world is always under all circumstances a mirror reflection of the internal. And so if I'm calling on these entities, if I'm calling, let's say, Balaam to grant me divination and invisibility, that I'm activating that part of myself, and as I activate that part of myself, it becomes alive and acting through me. And because these spirits aren't just operating on their own. Like, Asmodee is not just going around making people fall in love just for the hell of it. He's working on what he's put into motion to do. These are almost, I don't want to say inert forces, but they're not directed forces until they're directed by a magician. And this is where the interesting part of the demonic hierarchy comes into play. And I was going to grab a quote from my first book, Kingdoms of Flame, and I completely forgot to do that. But in that book, I lay out, okay, well, we've got demons and angels and planetary spirits and elementals. We've got all of these spirits. They all look up to their particular commander, or even if you go further than that, the god that rules over them. But in the end, I, being a black magician, I can summon up angels just as easily as demons, and planetary intelligences just as easily as elemental spirits, and they're all going to respond. If I'm able to perform the ritual correctly, if I'm able to insert myself into the paradigm in the way that I should, I can get them to all respond and do exactly what I want. But I'm not a servant of either or any of their gods, and so why would they listen to me at all? Well, when you get into the hierarchies, the question really is well, who is at the absolute top of the hierarchy? And most people say, well, it's God. Well, which God? Because there are a million. The God Jehovah that's now worshipped is a pretty young one and was actually stolen from a lot of other sources. So is it that God? Or are we talking about Baal Hadad? Or what God are we talking about? Well, the Almighty. Well, that's, once again, that's vague. What it comes down to, from my experience, is that the entity that is at the top of every hierarchy is the magician who is doing the evocation. That in that moment you are God, and that is part of the ritual of evocation, as well as most high rituals in magic, are to invoke omnipotence and become the creator yourself. That the spirit rises and it doesn't think, well, who are you and why are you calling me here? It says, oh, you're the one who created me. You are the one who created all things, and therefore I will listen to you. And that's essential for really evocation, as well as any type of ritual, is to invoke that omnipotence and to project it through the ritual. And obviously you've got to learn quite a bit about the spirit, about the paradigm in which it exists in order to do that properly. But that really is the essence of it, meaning that you are at the top of the hierarchy if you choose to be. As soon as you start performing a ritual, and then once you have successfully gotten to the end of the ritual, you are number one. You are the sole entity that spirit is going to listen to, and you have set it into motion. But once again, we don't want to, well, at least I don't want to always have to resort to calling on these things to make things happen, because you're basically constantly asking for help. You're constantly begging other entities to do the work for you, rather than doing it yourself. Now, Julius Evola, in several of his works, he was a Obviously a great thinker, but also an occultist in the early 1900s. He was in Italy. He was a very strong supporter of Mussolini's form of fascism, and supporter of the Axis forces, and some really interesting stuff was going on with him politically. But magically, he had ideas that far surpass anything that folks like Crowley or S.L. McGregor Mathers even considered. You've got these people who have set themselves up as experts, and then you've got Julius Evola, who was the expert. He didn't have to claim it to anybody. That you read his books and you really look at his works, and it's obvious. And one of the things that he harped on is that you never perform an evocation in order to just ask the Spirit to do something for you. You perform the evocation in order to subjugate, and that's a big part of it, is the subjugation or coercion of the Spirit when you call it. Most people think that you have to do this to beat the Spirit down to get it to do what you want. That you've got to threaten it in the name of Jesus or Muhammad or Zoroaster or whatever god of the system you're working with. That's not necessarily the case. You do have to gain an extreme familiarity, an intimate familiarity with that Spirit, so you know it, better than you even know yourself. And then to do almost a juxtaposition of roles where you begin to pull the Spirit into you, pull its essence into you, and let it radiate through you. What this turns out to be in I guess common vocabulary would be a possession, that you become possessed by the spirits that you're calling. But it's a possession that's extraordinarily controlled, that you as the operator, you're not just flailing about in a possessed state, but you are in perfect control of it, and you're simply allowing that essence to flow through you, thereby giving you the powers of the spirits themselves, or the demons themselves. Now, as far as in the hierarchy of where these demons, and specifically the 9 demonic kings, stand in kind of in the whole spectrum, from my experience, I would say they're more powerful than most archangels. There are a couple archangels that are going to be more powerful than they are, but those are few and far between, and most of them aren't originally Judaic or Christian, but they're borrowed from other systems, like most of that entire philosophy is. But once again, we're working with ancient gods, some of the first gods to ever be worshipped on this planet when you're working with demons. And so it is scary. There is a darkness to it, and darkness is only, obviously, misunderstanding or ignorance that you don't have. You're especially when you insert the social, I think, taboo of working with demons in the first place, then obviously you come into it with that kind of preconception about what they are. But once you break through that, you start realizing, well, not only are these things not really all that dark, but they're actually downright helpful. Like, when you start developing relationships with these demons, they're right on ball to help you with whatever you want, whatever you need in life, and putting into motion things that are of absolute benefit to you. And I've seen that with my work with Azazel. And Azazel and Paimon are very intensely linked, where it's easy to say that Paimon is possibly another form or mask or version of Azazel. But in my work with Azazel, absolutely set me up and cleared the path for everything that I wanted to have and to do with my life in extraordinarily positive ways. And so by working with these demons, I'm not suffering the negative consequences that I guess I should be if I were to listen to all of the people who say that working with demons is bad. In fact, just the opposite. My life has gotten extraordinarily grand. Of course, I did have a friend the other day that mentioned that when I die, I'm probably going to, I may very well find myself in front of gates that are definitely not pearly, and Satan will be there letting me know that he let me in on a very good life, and now it's time to pay the piper. That could be the case. From my experiences in soul travel, that's not what waits for me in the afterlife anyways. So, but regardless, it's in working with demons, in working with the demonic hierarchy, and specifically the 9 kings, you're developing these aspects of yourself, really these aspects of the black magician, that otherwise might be latent. And once you take evocation to the degree of once again, kind of flipping the positions of it, where rather than coming to the spirit asking for help, that you call it up, you begin to let it into you, let its essence, its knowledge, its intellect flow through you, that you take on these attributes and aspects, that you become Baal, Zagan, Asmodee, you become these spirits, and you take on all their powers. So Baal would be your manifestation of raw power. So as a black magician in developing raw power, as you work with Baal, you're going to find that your physical vitality just skyrockets. Your metaphysical ability to project your will is going to be off the charts. Everything dealing with just raw force is going to be under the domain of Baal. If you start working with Zagan quite a bit, then you're going to find yourself becoming much more of a deceitful, secretive person. You're going to find that that's a lot easier for you to get into that state. Some of us, from myself, I find it hard sometimes to be deceitful, to be dishonest. If I wanted to cultivate that, which can be a very good thing, to be able to deceive to an extent, working with Zagan would definitely do that, calling Zagan into myself. Asmodee, revealer of secrets, so working with him, I would definitely have a better knowledge of what's going on in just about everybody's minds. I would become basically a channel for constant revelation. Balaam would basically, again, give me a massive amount of prescience that I would instantly know just about everything. That events occurring at a distance or in the future, or things that are not yet determined, would be intuitively, instantly known to me. Vine has the ability to overcome all obstacles, and so what I would probably find if I were to work heavily with Vine, call that into myself, would be that I would find solutions for problems a lot faster, or that I would simply be able to crush whatever obstacles are in front of me through physical, intellectual, or spiritual force. Persone, in calling Persone into me, I would find that I'm able to manifest whatever I want in my life much faster, much more effectively, that I would be able to create whatever. It's hard for me to pull out examples, I guess, because I have just about everything I want in life at this point. But if I were to ever want more, having Persone flowing through me, I would be able to create that pretty much instantly without much trouble and getting exactly what I want. Working with Baleth, I would be able to manipulate other people's emotions to a level that most people just aren't capable of. And actually working with Baleth, Paimon, and Belial together and calling them into yourself would allow you almost instantaneous hypnotic abilities over other people, that you can simply speak to somebody and not only do they agree with you, but they're going to do exactly what it is that you've implanted. And so, just working with Paimon, I'd be able to manipulate other people's thoughts through that hypnotic quality as well. And then Belial would most definitely give me more of a control over the affairs of this world, as he can manipulate authority figures with extreme ease. And so these are aspects. You could even say that these are aspects of the black magician. And so by working with these entities, even the evocation and the entity itself is a form of a symbol that and I'm not going to say that they're not real, because my experience has evidence that they most definitely are very real, but that they can also be seen as parts of not necessarily your psyche, but your entire being, especially as a black magician. These are aspects of yourself that you can amplify and develop further through working with this hierarchy. Now, as far as the actual the actual layout of the hierarchy, once again, the biggest thing that I think everybody ought to really understand is that at all times, if you are in the middle of a ritual with any spirit, you are at the top of that hierarchy. As soon as you forget that, as soon as you go, well, I'm just a person calling this ancient god, and why would it listen to me in the first place, you've completely screwed the ritual up. And so you always have to have it in mind. No, I am the manifestation of the Creator in this moment, and so all the entities are going to listen to me. What flows down from there as far as the hierarchy is really not extraordinarily important as far as saying, well, is it Lucifer or is it Beelzebub that's at the top? Well, that's somebody else's idea about these completely unrelated concepts. I mean, Lucifer, is a Greco-Roman entity, whereas Beelzebub is going to be coming from ancient Phoenician, Akkadian, Sumerian sources. So two entities that never interacted until some Christian put them in the same book together, and so whether that doesn't seem like a very effective or very accurate hierarchical structure at all. So most of the hierarchies that you'll have are pretty useless that you can come across, but once again, from what I've seen, these 9 are probably some of the 9 most potent powers that you can work with ever, and in doing so, I mean, you're going to completely transform yourself in amazing ways. So, do you have any questions? I kind of just threw a whole lot at you.
Do they have underlings underneath them that help with things, or do they do it themselves?
That's a great question. Yeah, they do have, underlings that work under them. They have familiar spirits, and those will be in the form of legions. And so you've got, for instance, I think Belial has 80 legions under him, and I can't remember exactly how many spirits or people are in a standard legion, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands. And I calculated Azazel's number of legions at one point, and it was staggering, bigger than any army here on Earth. And so, as you call that one entity, what you'll actually find in the evocation is that Paimon or Azazel or whoever it is you're calling is going to materialize in front of you. You're going to be focusing your attention on that. If you pull your vision back and kind of look at the entire area, though, you're going to see that they're not alone. That they come with a lot of other spirits, and so yeah, when you call on one of these entities to do something for you, it's going to have a whole host. Demonic armies that are going to come along with it to attack the problem. You look like you might have had something.
Well, what are the symbols for all 9?
Okay, yeah, no, excellent. You want me to draw them on the board here?
Whatever's easiest.
I can do that. I've got it on the skulls here. Oh, and I was going to explain at some point why I've got the skulls here. I'm in the middle of an operation, a ritual undertaking of taking these entities, because this is conscious energy, and so it's kind of just free floating. If you anchor it into an object, then the force of that spirit is continually flowing into and through that object. And so this is the power of a talisman or an amulet, that it's going to kind of always radiate that power. And so I'm gradually putting the essence of the 9 demonic kings into these skulls here, and then I'm going to do a major ritual later this month that's going to just completely throw these entities into these skulls and then seal it up, and then I'll have to see what I do with them from that point, because it's basically an interesting experiment at this point. But yeah, I've got the sigils written on all of their foreheads there, but I can write them on here for you. All right, so you've got Balaam, and I'd encourage you to look these up before using them. They're going to be accurate, but at the same time, my drawing sucks. So now, have you worked much with spirit sigils or anything?
Yes.
Okay, because a lot of
the Goetic, though.
Okay, yeah, and these are all coming from the Goetia. So yeah. With these symbols, because that's not a question that most people ask, is what are the symbols of these spirits, because most people don't even know what you're going to do with these. But if you take this symbol, take this, and I like to, just because it's kind of a traditional thing, throw a circle around it, draw it on a piece of paper, and meditate on it while you're focusing on your desire. You're gonna a lot of times you're gonna have the sigil start to flash, so it'll fade from view and then reappear and then fade and then reappear, and eventually it'll look like it's kind of floating off of the paper, or you can see the energy lines tracing in the lines themselves. And just meditate on it, gaze at it while you're visualizing exactly what you want to have happen, and spookily it happens fast and exactly as you've imagined it. People who are complete novices or neophytes that have no experience in the occult, I can throw a sigil in front of them and say, if you want to know if what I'm talking about is complete bullshit, try this out. And every time they come away apologizing. So yeah, that's so this is Balaam's. Is there a way to push the felt out of there anymore?
No. There's probably another marker.
Yeah, this is all right. It's working.
Probably like a 5 in the tray back there if you want. You want help drawing them?
Sure. Now, I should point out that spirit sigils are relatively new. That really prior to Renaissance period magic, you didn't have these kinds of sigils that you'd use to associate with a demon, a spirit, a god, or anything like that. You would simply use prayers, orations to that spirit. A connection with it. One of the most important parts of working with any spirit is what I call preparatory immersion. Some people call it subjective synthesis, but basically where you put yourself into not only the system of the spirit, but the spirit itself. So you study as much as you can about it. Sometimes you'll even dress in or put up items that are the color of that spirit or of its planetary sphere, that in some way you spend an amount of time targeting your mind to align with that spirit and with the paradigm that spirit exists within in order to do it. And so sigils are kind of a easy backdoor into kind of developing that connection, rather than spending months communing with the spirit. That you just look at its sigil, gaze at its sigil. You can do a little research beforehand, and then you produce some kind of effect. Obviously, the more intense your connection, the more intense the effect is going to be. And so, if you can combine the two aspects of it, being the preparatory immersion as well as the sigil, you're going to have amazing results. But a lot of people get hung up on, well, is this the right sigil? Do I have the right, do I have the circle and the lines in the right places? None of that matters. None of that matters at all. Because the symbol is something for you to look at while internally the work is going on. It's like I did a tarot reading for an 8-year-old at one point. The first child that I ever read tarot for. And I do it, and it's a friend of or a daughter of a friend. And so I lay the cards down, I do the tarot reading. She's like, well, that's cool, it's all right, but the cards didn't do anything. It's like, well, you just got the secret of it. The cards don't do anything. The sigils don't do anything. There's something to look at while you're doing the work internally. It's the basis of hypnosis. If you're distracted by something like a sigil, you're able to get deep into your own internal self. But yeah, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, get a couple more.
Missing one.
Bio.
Yeah, it's your set.
Thank you for your help.
Let him finish it, otherwise I get distracted. I think 10 minutes to finish.
Okay. So yeah, so those are basically the sigils in some poor art fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A question.
Yes.
Okay, so say somebody wanted like have one of these tattooed on their body, would it do anything for them?
Well, okay, so once again, the sigil itself is by and large something to look at as you're internally doing the real work. However, just like I'm putting imbuing these with the essence of the demons, what doing that is going to do, as long as you are putting your focus into it, is it's going to anchor your focus. It's going to anchor the energy of that spirit into your body, into your skin. What that could definitely lead to is a possession of that spirit. I've known at least a handful of people who have undergone possession, demonic possession, or any kind of possession, and then after that they're obsessed with getting the tattoo of that sigil on their skin. It is a permanent way of linking yourself with that spirit. So that could be very potent. Of course, once again, the potency is only going to be as much as you put into it, because I mean, if I pin somebody down and tattoo, Belial on their skin, it's not going to do anything for them unless I imbue it with the force of it, in which case that could be a very interesting experiment. So, any other questions at all?
So you summon any of them, and you do it a little bit wrong. What is the worst that could happen?
Okay, so you summon any of them and you do it a little bit wrong. First of all, I think we'd have to define what a little bit wrong is. Not saying the right God name or pronouncing something wrong is not going to do anything unless you let it. You are okay. So we all have heard at this point, and it's pretty cool. I think that I can say that we've all heard this because this is a relatively new thing. But I think we've all heard that we create our own reality. That even on a quantum level, we're creating our own reality. This is never more clear than when you're performing evocation, because your living room is just a living room. A half hour later, there's a demon standing inside of it talking to you. To all of your senses, it's real. Somebody can come in the room, and most likely they're not going to see anything. Almost all the time, they're going to feel an extreme dread, and they're going to book it out of there. But they're not going to see what you're seeing because you've gone through the ritual of elevating your senses to the point that you can see and hear these things. But in creating your own reality, you've created this entire embodiment that's standing in front of you, because these demons, they don't have, once again, they're conscious energy. They don't have bodies that they're hanging out on. They don't have 2 arms and 2 legs. That's what we've developed through our evolution on this planet. They've evolved in an absence of space and time. Therefore, they are something beyond what we're even able to bring down to anything besides, once again, a dot. And so you've created the body that they're inhabiting, and manifested that in front of you. You've created an extraordinary alteration in your reality. Now, in that way, the biggest thing I think that's going to kill your ritual is doubt. First of all, that you're going to doubt that it's real, that it's happening, or you're going to doubt your ability to control it. And I would say fear. But fear can actually be a potent catalyst. If you're afraid of what you're calling, then that's a signal to you that it's very real and it's going to show up and all of that. Of course, if you remain afraid of it throughout the evocation, that's what you're manifesting. That's the reality you're creating. Now, what can go wrong? The worst thing that you can ever have happen in a ritual is to think that it didn't work. That's every time people have completely screwed themselves up and came and I've had to pull them out of their own hells that they've created, is when they perform a ritual and they go, oh, well, I don't see anything, and so it must not be here. Seeing the spirit, first of all, is a relatively new thing. That comes from that's a Western Kabbalistic Hermetic type of idea that you have to be able to see the spirit. In all of the ancient forms of evocation, it was the felt presence, that you could feel that something was there, and you can identify exactly what it is just through that feeling alone. But regardless of whatever the case is, people will perform a ritual, call this thing up, and I've had this happen as I was teaching somebody to perform evocation. They're standing next to me doing the ritual. I'm getting into the states where I'm able to perceive all of this. And he performs the evocation. The spirit rises up in front of him, and it's impressive. The whole thing is just mind blowing. And so I'm looking at him like, all right. And he looks at me. He's all, why didn't it work? I don't see anything. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so we're having 2 completely different experiences, and we're standing right next to each other, engaging in the exact same thing. And it was a matter of the absence of the preparatory immersion, as well as not having developed the sensitivities to be able to connect with all of these things. But the same guy did that a few times, where he would call on it, and then you'd standing there, and he's like, oh yeah, well, I guess nothing happened. Something did happen. There's an energy that he's called into play, that he's set something into motion, and by not finishing the ritual, he's basically just letting it wander free. And whenever you obviously have a force in your life that's not directed, it's just going to cause havoc. So I think that's the worst thing that you can have happen, is to assume that it didn't work and treat it as if it didn't work, because then you've got that force that's just running rampant in your life. For this guy, his whole life just fell apart. In every way. Girlfriend leaves him, and he gets kicked out of school, and everything. He gets fired from his job, and by the time he came to me for help, he was extremely suicidal. So it does definitely rack your entire life when you call these things up and you don't acknowledge them. So the best way that you should always proceed with it, if you perform an evocation, and even if there's quite a bit of doubt as to whether or not it worked, treat it every time as if it did. And that's the opposite advice you're going to get from most people. And that's kind of how I work. I look at all the bullshit that's been spouted for centuries that's completely wrong. I'm like, no, by anybody who has experience, that's not the way to go about it, because traditional ceremonialists will say that if you don't produce a materialization that is almost photographable, that you need to abandon the ritual and assume that it's gone completely wrong, abandon it and walk away, and most often don't perform another ritual for another a 30-day space of time. And I really do the exact opposite, because I have yet to ever see somebody go through the ritual of evocation and have something not appear. Something is going to happen. So treat it as if it does, and even if you can't see it, hear it, there's no two-way communication, just go ahead and give your command. It's my desire that you increase wealth in my life and bring me all of the abundance that I desire, and then release the Spirit as if you were having a full conversation with the Spirit. It'll go on its way, and everything works out wonderfully. In the book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin and the Mage, this guy is learning all of these different forms of purifying himself and summoning spirits and purifying the world around him. And the big piece of advice he's given is to not be concerned with how the Spirit manifests, but be concerned with the result that it brings. And if your focus is always on, well, what is the end result, that's going to be, I think, the most important factor. I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is they're looking for the phenomenon and not the result, which makes it hard to distinguish enlightened people from crazy people. Because if, in my opinion, if you have any form of enlightenment or any sort of reality to the spiritual potential that you're projecting, your life is going to be pretty damn good. I mean, like, really, if you're able to call on these 9 kings, you should never have money problems, relationship problems. I mean, everything should flow pretty smoothly. If you do have an obstacle in the road, you should be able to eliminate it fast. You should live a charmed, dreamed life. And very few people who are claim to have this knowledge and this ability have, because they're not keeping an eye on that end result. That you do need to anchor it in this world by actually producing something. So that was a way roundabout way of answering your question, but did that answer it? So, all right. Anything else? Once, twice, 3 times. All right. Well, thank you for coming out. I appreciate you being here.